At dinner, my mom said, "It's for those who actually contribute." My sister smirked. "Just be happy we told you all." I said, "Thanks for the honesty." Then I went home, shut down the payment portal, and blocked every linked device. At 5:17 a.m., my brother texted, "We can't board. Call the airline." I ignored them. Later, I received the first call. I've never felt rage like that in my life. Not when my sister crashed my car and laughed about it. Not when my mom opened a credit card in my name when I was 19. Not even when my dad told me I should toughen up after I got laid off during the pandemic. But that dinner, that smug, carefully orchestrated dinner, it was the moment something snapped inside me. Not loudly, not all at once, but with this slow, cold finality that made everything suddenly clear. They'd set it up at their usual spot, Bianchi's, a place they loved not for the food, but for the atmosphere. White tablecloths, imported olive oil, and menu items no one could pronounce correctly. I showed up on time, like I always did. I even dressed decently because I thought maybe, for once, they just wanted a nice evening, a calm family moment. I was so stupidly hopeful. Everyone was already there. My mom kissed my cheek like she hadn't ghosted 3 of my calls the week before. My sister barely looked up from her phone. My brother nodded like we were coworkers, not siblings. And my dad gave me that tight and forced smile he always uses when he's about to say something awful but hasn't decided when. Dinner started normal enough. Bread, wine. My mom complained about airport security, even though she wasn't flying for another 24 hours. I remember laughing at something dumb my brother said about his trainer. And for a second, it actually felt like family. Then the mood shifted. You could feel it, even if you didn't know what was coming. My mom waited until the pasta arrived. I had just taken my first bite when she set down her fork, looked directly at my sister, and said, "It's for those who actually contribute." Silence. No one reacted. Not at first. Then my sister smirked, not even trying to hide it. My brother kept looking at his phone, but I could see his shoulders tense up. My dad casually wiped his mouth as if it was just another Wednesday. "Just be happy we told you it all." That was from my sister. She didn't look at me when she said it. Didn't have to. It was all so rehearsed. I said the only thing I could. "Thanks for the honesty," and I meant it. Not because I appreciated it, but because finally, they'd said what they'd been thinking for years. I wasn't really part of the family. I was the bank, the safety net, the one who could be stepped over as long as I kept paying for the floor. See, the Italy trip was my idea. I wanted to do something special. We hadn't traveled together in a decade, and I thought maybe, just maybe, it could be a fresh start. So I planned everything. Booked the flights, reserved the hotels, even arranged day tours. Spent just under 30 grand from money I'd saved over 2 years. I figured I'd get some of it back later. That was the unspoken agreement. But apparently, their plan was to go without me. They decided I wasn't driven enough, that I didn't understand what it meant to be building a future. All of this whispered behind my back, then casually dropped on me like it was no big deal. I paid the bill. Of course, no one offered. They never do. I left without saying goodbye. When I got home, I didn't rage or scream. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started canceling everything. The flights, the hotels, the car rentals, every reservation I made. The system let me recoup about 80% of it. So yeah, I lost $6,000 just for the privilege of not being humiliated across the Atlantic. Then I revoked every linked device. My sister, my mom, my dad, they'd all had access to my travel app. I kicked them out. Then I blocked their emails from my account entirely. I finished at around 3 a.m. At 5:17, my brother texted, "We can't board. Call the airline." By 6 o'clock, I had 5 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, 3 from my sister. One text from my dad just said, "What did you do?" At 8:10, the phone rang again. I picked up. "You're out of the apartment. I want you out by next week." Then he hung up. I stood there in the quiet, looking around at the place I'd called home for 2 years. Technically, theirs. I paid them $1,000 a month to live there. Less than market rate, sure, but I'd been micromanaged like a teenager. They chose when the AC was allowed to be on, who could visit, what furniture was acceptable. Next week? No. I started packing that morning. And for once in my life, I didn't feel afraid. I felt free. I didn't reply to his call, not to the message, not to the threats. I just started packing slowly, deliberately, not because I was scared. I wasn't, but because I wanted to remember this. I wanted to remember every piece of clothing I folded, every drawer I emptied, every little item I had once felt lucky to own while living in their apartment. They wanted me out by next week. I'd be out in 2 days. It wasn't even noon before I had half the kitchen boxed up and 3 bags of clothes sorted. Around 3 p.m., I found a listing online for a furnished one-bedroom in a quiet part of town. The guy renting it had just taken a job in Canada and needed someone immediately. I messaged. He called within 10 minutes. And after a quick video tour and a Venmo transfer, the place was mine for the next 6 months. Just like that. No co-signed lease. No Dad has to approve. No questions about whether I really needed a second pillow. The next morning, they came over. I was kneeling on the floor, taping a box shut, when I heard the knock. I knew it was them. I didn't even have to look. I opened the door, and there they were, my mom holding a plastic container of Danish pastries like this was some kind of family brunch. My dad behind her, his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. I could hear my sister on speakerphone through my mom's bag. My mom said they'd been thinking that maybe they were a little hasty. My dad said I was clearly in a bad place emotionally, and they were willing to forgive and move past it if I stopped acting irrationally. It took everything in me not to laugh. You think I'm irrational because I stopped funding your trip to Europe? Because I didn't let you humiliate me and still pick up the tab? My sister's voice chimed in from the phone. She said I was acting hostile, that I was blowing up years of family over one mistake. That word, drama, was what finally did it. I told them the truth. All of it. I laid out every little moment that had been festering inside me for years. Not just the Italy trip, everything. The time I took out a loan to help cover Dad's back surgery because insurance wouldn't. The times I canceled plans because Mom guilt-tripped me about being absent. The time I paid my sister's rent twice because she said her roommate bailed. The years I gave and never got so much as an apology. You don't get to call it drama now. You don't get to play confused. They stood there pretending to listen. My mom said something about how I was rewriting history. My dad said I should calm down before I burned all my bridges. Too late. I told them I was moving out in 2 days. No, they didn't need to worry about rent. No, I didn't need their help. No, I wasn't coming to Sunday dinner. No, I didn't want to hear from any of them. And I shut the door. They didn't come back that night, or the next. 2 days later, I moved. The apartment was small and a little beat up, but the windows let in light, and the neighbors didn't know my name, and I could breathe. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't owe them that. For the first time in years, I felt like a person again, a whole one. Not a wallet with a pulse, not a backup plan, just Julia. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The first week in the new apartment felt surreal. I'd wake up expecting some passive-aggressive group text, a lecture about family unity, or a reminder to take out the trash, even though I hadn't lived under their roof for years. But there was nothing, just silence. It was the kind of silence I didn't know I needed until I had it. I filled my space slowly, got a cheap couch off Facebook Marketplace, set up my desk in front of the window, bought a secondhand espresso machine because I could. Every choice, every little decision, it was mine. No one hovering. No one asking why I needed something. No one guilt-tripping me over priorities. Then a week and a half after I moved, I got an email. Subject line, please call us. It's urgent. It was from my mom. I deleted it without opening it. An hour later, another one came from my dad. We need to talk. It's important. Please don't ignore us. I muted the thread, but I couldn't help checking their socials. My sister's Instagram had gone quiet. My brother's gym check-ins stopped. My mom's Facebook hadn't posted a single cat meme in days, which, for her, was basically a cry for help. Then came the third email, this time from my brother's account. Hey, something happened. Please just call me. I didn't. I sat with it for a few hours, wondering if someone was seriously hurt. And for a moment, that old guilt crept back in, that reflex they'd hardwired into me where everything was somehow my responsibility, where ignoring them meant I was a bad daughter, a bad sister, a heartless person. But that moment passed. By the time I opened the email out of pure curiosity, it was already outdated. The content was vague, like they were afraid to explain the full situation over text. But I got enough from the tone. Something went wrong, something big. 2 days later, I found out what it was. They didn't tell me. My cousin Derek did. Apparently, the airline never refunded the taxes on the non-refundable leg of the trip. The hotel in Rome charged a cancellation fee that was conveniently buried in the fine print. And the travel insurance? They never followed through with the claim because none of them had actually read the policy I bought. Total out-of-pocket loss for them, almost $8,000. Worse, my dad had put a chunk of it on a card he was already behind on. The bank froze his account after a mispayment, and my sister's tuition reimbursement from her job fell through. Their trip that never happened still managed to financially wreck them. Karma's got excellent timing. And that's when they started begging. The calls picked back up, this time voicemails. My dad stammering about needing to talk, my mom crying, my sister saying it had gone too far and they were all suffering. I listened to all of it. Didn't answer a single one. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my mom called 5 times in a row, and the last voicemail changed everything. She said, in between sobs, that if I didn't help them now, I wasn't their daughter anymore. I played that message twice. Sat there staring at the wall while it sank in. You're not our daughter anymore. It was meant to guilt me, to manipulate me. But it didn't hurt the way they thought it would. It felt pathetic, desperate, empty. I didn't reply. 2 months passed. I started feeling like I had a rhythm again. Grocery runs, work, friends, peace. I was sleeping better. I looked healthier. People noticed. Then one afternoon, I saw something that made me stop in my tracks. I was walking to get lunch, and there was my dad's car, except it wasn't my dad driving it. A week later, my cousin sent me a screenshot. They had sold the car. The moment I saw my dad's car listed on Facebook Marketplace, something shifted. I wasn't surprised they sold it. They always put pride above planning. But what caught me off guard was how fast it had all crumbled. Just 2 months since the cancellation, and they were already letting go of what used to be his sacred possession. That car was his identity, his throne, his statement to the world. Now it was some teenager's first ride, probably filled with vape smoke and bad decisions. I thought that was the end of their spiral. It wasn't. A week later, just after I got back from the grocery store, I found someone standing at my door. Hoodie, sunglasses, backpack. For a second, I thought it was a neighbor. Then I recognized him, my brother. I hadn't heard from him since that night he texted me from the airport like a lunatic. No warning now either. Just showed up like this was a sitcom, and we were about to patch things up over a couple beers. He didn't wait to be invited in. Walked straight past me, sat on the edge of my couch, and just said it. They need help. I leaned against the wall and listened. Apparently, things had taken a turn. Their savings were drained. Credit cards frozen. The bank had started sending warnings. My mom's hours at work got cut. My sister, who was supposed to be the successful one, was under some kind of HR investigation at her company, something involving misuse of a corporate card. He didn't give details, and I didn't ask. Then he hit me with it. They're behind on the mortgage. That was the one they'd always held over my head. The apartment they let me live in for $1,000 a month while constantly reminding me how lucky I was. Now it was at risk, 2 months behind. The bank had already sent notices. I said nothing. He reached into his backpack and pulled out an envelope like it was some grand reveal. Inside, printed bank statements, a drafted repayment contract, a whole formal request asking me to loan them $10,000 to stabilize things. It had bullet points, signatures, interest rates, like we were business partners instead of family. I stared at it, then looked at him. A contract, after all that? He said they wanted to show me they were serious, that this wasn't just another handout. I didn't laugh, I didn't yell. I just stood up, walked into the kitchen, and got 2 glasses of water. Sat one in front of him, sat down with mine, and waited. He started filling the silence with excuses. Said they were stressed, that the things they said weren't meant the way they came out, that my mom didn't mean it when she said I wasn't their daughter. I just listened. Then I said calmly, simply, no. He blinked like I was speaking another language. No, I'm not helping, not again. He sat there for a long time. Then he said something that really stuck. If you don't help them, this could get really bad. I told him it already had, and I walked to the door. He didn't argue, just stood up, mumbled something about how they'd figure it out, and left. That night, I got a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was shaky. We shouldn't have said that about you not being our daughter. We were angry, scared. You know we didn't mean it. I deleted it, because I didn't care anymore whether they meant it or not. It was what they really thought. I was only family when I was useful. When I wasn't, I was disposable. Then, 3 days later, something happened that caught me completely off guard. I got a fraud alert email from my credit monitoring service. Someone tried to take out a payday loan in my name. A $3,500 online application using my old address, using my name. But it didn't go through because I'd frozen my credit months ago, right after I moved. Just a precaution at the time. I never imagined it would be them. I requested a copy of the application. Everything matched. Name, birthday, social. It wasn't a hacker. It was someone who had my information already. Someone I used to live with. They never mentioned it, never owned up. But I knew. And for the first time in my life, I truly didn't feel like their daughter anymore. I felt like a target. I didn't confront them. There was no point. If they were willing to use my identity to squeeze out a loan, then whatever was left of our relationship wasn't worth preserving. I filed a report, locked down my credit even harder, added an alert with the bureaus, and moved on. Quietly. Without drama. That's the part they never understood. Cutting someone off doesn't always come with yelling. Sometimes it's just a locked door and silence. For a few weeks, nothing happened. The messages stopped. The calls stopped. I almost started to believe they'd finally accepted it. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message from my cousin Lena. Just a screenshot, no caption. It was my mom's Facebook post. She'd tagged half the family and wrote, "Some people pretend to be family until you need them. Some people pretend to love you until you're no longer useful. But that's okay. God sees everything." There were comments, lots of them, all vague and loaded. "So sorry. Marie, you don't deserve that. Some people forget who raised them. God will handle it." And then came the direct messages, aunts, uncles, even my grandma. "Why are they saying these things? What happened with your mom? You need to fix this, Julia. Family is all you've got." I didn't respond to most of them, but then Uncle Jeff called. Not a voicemail, an actual call. I picked up. He asked me straight, what the hell happened? So I told him everything. The Italy trip, the cancellation, the eviction, the manipulation, the payday loan attempt. Every ugly detail I'd kept quiet about out of respect, thinking maybe they'd come around. I didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't interrupt once, just listened. When I finished, he was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Jesus Christ, Julia. They didn't tell us any of that." Later that day, my cousin Derek messaged me again. He'd called my mom after seeing the post. Said she tried to cry her way through the conversation, spinning the story to make it sound like I was unstable and dangerous. But by then, most of the relatives had already heard the real version, and they weren't buying it. One by one, the comments under her post started disappearing. The post itself vanished the next day. Then came the final blow. My mom messaged me, not with an apology, not with regret. She just said, "I hope you're happy. You've turned everyone against us." I stared at it for a minute. Then I typed one sentence. "And you did that all by yourself." Sent, blocked. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. After I blocked her, I expected things to go quiet again. I thought maybe that was it. The final swing, the last pathetic jab. But I should have known better. Silence isn't my family's style. If they couldn't control me, they'd try to control how people saw me. 3 days later, I woke up to a flood of notifications. Apparently, my mom had made a new post on Facebook, one of those dramatic black and white text on background types, the kind that screams, "Victim," from a mile away. It read, "He's not mentally well. Please pray for my son. We're heartbroken, but doing our best. Some things are beyond our control." My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew who she was talking about. And in case there was any doubt, she commented under her own post with an old photo of me at age 12, smiling at a family picnic. I felt sick. Then the calls started. First my grandma, then Annarisa, then some distant cousin I hadn't heard from in years. They were concerned. They'd heard I was spiraling, that I might be unwell, that I'd lost touch with reality. A few even asked if I'd been using drugs. I laughed. For a minute, I genuinely laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Then the real surprise hit. One of my mom's old coworkers, Cheryl, reached out. I barely remembered her, but she said she'd always liked me, thought I was polite, and wanted to give me a heads up. Apparently, my mom had been crying at work, saying I was cutting myself off and making threats, that she feared for my safety, for their safety. She even suggested to Cheryl that she was thinking of filing for a restraining order against me. That stopped me cold. I hadn't done anything. No calls, no visits, no threats, not even a single message since I left. But she was planting seeds. Just enough fear, just enough ambiguity. And that's when I realized this wasn't about money anymore. This was about control. They couldn't shame me into helping. They couldn't guilt me into coming back. So now they were trying to isolate me, one relationship at a time. I was furious. But then something happened that I never saw coming. Uncle Jeff, the same one I told everything to, posted his own status that afternoon. Public, full name tagged, bold. It's hard watching people rewrite history to protect themselves. Proud of my niece for finally setting boundaries. Maybe if more of us had done that sooner, things would have been different. It went viral in our family group. Everyone saw it. Some messaged me privately to say they were sorry. Some shared stories of how they'd also been manipulated. Turns out, I wasn't the only one my parents had pushed around over the years. I was just the first one to push back this hard. Then came the final surprise. My dad emailed me. No subject, no greeting, just one line. You've embarrassed this family enough. We're blocking you. That was it. No apology, no attempt at peace, just one last pathetic attempt to reclaim power. And I let them. Because by then, they weren't my family anymore. Just people I used to know. The one update. It's been a little over a month since the last message from my dad. The one where he said I'd embarrassed the family and that they were blocking me. I never replied, and I didn't need to. That was the last thread cut, the final bit of noise. After that, everything just stopped. For the first time in my life, there's no tension when I check my phone. No panic when I open my inbox. No obligation weighing down every weekend. Just silence and freedom. Life's not glamorous, but it feels real. I still live in a small apartment with the crooked cabinet doors and the faucet that hisses like a snake every morning. I still eat frozen dumplings way more often than I should. But I can breathe here. I can leave dishes in the sink. I can watch a movie at 2 a.m. without someone knocking on my door asking why the lights are still on. A couple weeks ago, I bought a tiny used dining table and built it myself. I didn't call anyone for help. Didn't ask for approval. Just did it. Every screw went in crooked, but it stands. That table means more to me than anything I left behind in their apartment. I got a cat, Olive. She's a menace. She knocks things off counters for fun. Screams at nothing at 4 a.m. Follows me around like she's making sure I don't screw up again. I think she gets me. Works stable, actually better than before. Without the constant emotional drain, I've been sharper, more creative. I even started freelancing on the side and landed a couple decent clients. I'm finally stacking a savings account that no one else has access to. I've heard from a few extended relatives since. Some apologized. Some admitted they'd always suspected something wasn't right with how my parents treated me. One of my cousins even thanked me, said watching me stand up for myself gave her the push to finally move out of her toxic house too. My parents haven't heard a word. I don't miss them. Not because I hate them. I'm just tired of performing the role they wrote for me. The good daughter, the reliable one, the walking wallet, the buffer between their chaos and the rest of the world. I still think about them sometimes, especially late at night. I wonder if they regret any of it, if they sit in that now silent apartment wondering what they could have done differently. Probably not. But that's not my concern anymore. Here's what I've learned. When people say, family is forever, they're not wrong. But sometimes the family you're born into isn't the one you're meant to keep. Sometimes you build your own, with the friends who check in, the neighbor who invites you over for board games, the cat who curls up on your chest when you can't sleep. I thought I'd feel empty without them. Instead, I feel full, whole even. And for the first time in years, I'm not trying to get back what I lost. I'm finally building what I never had.